All right, here we are on a hump of the week Wednesday morning on the Smooth Breakfast on Smooth 98.1. Love music, love life. Ayokunmi here. And it's that time to get into the world of business on Business Express. Welcome along to the ride. It's brought to you by Interswitch this beautiful, beautiful morning. And joining me to have a conversation about what's been going on in the business world is my main man, Rotus. Rotus, good morning to you. Great to have you on.
Good morning, Ayo. Good morning to everybody out there. Good to be with you all. Good morning.
All right, and of course today, I mean, this is like a continuation from where we stopped on Monday, and we had already mentioned that we would be here to talk about the MPC, the MPC meeting that came up Monday and Tuesday, and yesterday was the big day, and a lot of predictions were thrown right out of the window into the Mariana Trench, as rates were hiked to 27.25%. I know Rotus was one of those, who you kind of predicted that, just maybe, uh, they were going to hold probably, but hey, Rotus, I mean, the fifth rate hike just this year alone. I'm looking at your prediction of the decision of the MPC missed the target. So just walk us through what was announced yesterday by Governor Olemi Cardoso.
Yeah, he keeps defying the prediction. So although I don't know if you I didn't know I know one person who won that predicted a hike. But yeah, they raised it by 50 basis points to 27.25, it said. They also the cash reserve ratio for commercial banks, they raised that by 500 basis points from 45% to 50%. They raised the cash reserve ratio for merchant banks from 14% to 60%. Those are the notable ones, and the liquidity ratio was kept in place at 30%. So that was what we got yesterday, man.
Okay, so I mean that has been said, it's been out there. They've made the decision, but what exactly was his justification for continuing to raise these rates?
Yeah, so I mean, he focused more on core inflation. He was talking a lot about the fact that yes, he acknowledged that headline inflation has moderated for 2 consecutive months, in a row. But he said, listen, core inflation, because, and he mentioned the energy prices in particular, because core inflation is where you take out more volatile, food and energy. But
Okay.
still, he recognized the fact that core inflation is still high and it's still troubling. And that was basically, one of the justifications. They mentioned others. Because if you look at the last inflation prints, on a month-on-month basis, it was only core inflation that rose from 2.16 to 2.27. That's month-on-month. For
Okay.
year-on-year, core inflation rose from 27.47 to 27.58, despite all the other parameters, urban inflation, rural, headline, food, decelerating. So he did mention that core inflation is one of the reasons why they want to continue to keep going down that path of hiking rates.
All right. Interesting thoughts there. Share your interesting thoughts on this with us on WhatsApp on 0809 We're also streaming live on YouTube at Smooth 981 FM Lagos. Okay, now, Bruce, you mentioned raising the cash reserve ratio on commercial and merchant banks. What exactly would the impact of that be?
Yeah, so they don't like that because essentially they are sterilizing those funds. So basically, it means that almost 50% of what they have in terms of deposits, 50% of that has to go over to the central bank. It's for emergency purposes, but it doesn't earn any interest. So banks don't particularly like that. On the CBN side, they're trying to do what they can to curb excess money supply, because most of the time when you've got excess money supply, sometimes that goes to speculative actions like trying to buy foreign exchange, which impacts the exchange rate. So that's the reason why they're continuing to remain tight on the cash reserve ratio for the commercial and the merchant banks.
Okay, okay. Now let's look at the flip side of this. Can you explain the net interest income of banks and how the increase in the NPR actually benefits this?
Yeah, well, actually, yeah, the net interest income basically is the difference between the interest that banks payouts of all interest earning accounts to depositors like you and I. So that's what we earn on our savings accounts and so on and so forth, versus what they earn also from businesses and individuals on the interest that we pay on loans. So you just basically a net interest margin. So it's good for them when interest rates are higher because they basically earn more money on loans and other interest-bearing entities, basically for the banks. So that's where it's good for them. But then you can argue that on the other side, the CRR is also something that they have to look at. But yes, their interest income is basically benefited by higher monetary policy rates.
Okay, duly noted. Now, let me just drag this here. Now, I understand that Governor Cardoso made a poignant point about the FAAC allocations and its impact on money supply and the exchange rate. What exactly did he say about that?
My eyebrows jumped when he brought that out, and it's something that some folks I know have been discussing a lot. So FAAC Allocations is a Federal Accounts Allocation Committee. Basically, we sell the oil we sell, we get the dollars, and then it is converted to Naira and then distributed to the federation, the states, and the local government. But they convert the dollars that are brought in, and then the Naira equivalent is then doled out, to the three arms to the federation, the states, and the local governments. What he said he noticed was that every time that happens, and this happens on a monthly basis, he noticed that the exchange rate gets weaker. And basically what he's saying is that some of these folks, get this money and they go and speculate, they go and buy foreign exchange. And the funny thing is that money is coming from the same foreign exchange that the country earned from selling oil. So you are pumping more by converting it to Naira from the dollars you've earned from your oil earnings. You're pumping more Naira into the system, which is elevating money supply. And there's not enough production of goods and services to meet that elevated money supply, which is now pushing prices up. And then some folks are speculating with that money and buying dollars, which is weakening the exchange rate. So I'm really glad that he brought that up. Very, very glad he did. So that's a note to the fiscal side that, hey, you guys, we need to address that. So he said they're going to be looking at that more closely going forward.
Okay, now talking about the exchange rates. Now he also made the point that keeping the rates elevated was needed to keep the FX inflows into the country. How exactly is that?
Yeah, so that's on the interest rates differential side. So like last week, the United States cut rates, South Africa cut rates. You've had a number, I think Hungary just yesterday, they also cut rates as well. So you've got inflation on the other side of the planet, at least on the West, decelerating a bit, allowing countries like the US and so on to cut rates. But I think Hong Kong cut rates as well. Basically, when those rates are going down, foreign investors will say, okay, look, who has higher interest rates? So you take money from where their rates are lower in the US and then come to a place like in Nigeria, emerging markets, and put your money there in order to earn higher returns on your portfolio investment. So that is supposed to be a positive for the exchange rates if foreign inflows are coming in, which we noticed last year when it started hiking. So he wants to keep that up.
Okay, so Rotus, each and every single day we sit down in the studio and all that and talk about all these things, rate hikes and so on and so forth. But we also need to ask the question, what exactly is the impact of all this on businesses and individuals out there, the common man out there who's going to get up this morning to go out and do what he needs to do to put food on his table? What does this all mean?
Yeah, that's the tough part. They're going to it means borrowing costs are going to remain elevated. Banks will send notices to businesses and individuals saying, hello, due to market conditions, your loan has been repriced upwards. So that, of course, does make things a bit tight. But it's one of those things where there is going to be an effect, a spillover effect on individuals and businesses when you keep borrowing costs high.
Okay, but is there a silver lining that one can actually take from all this, like common man out there? positive?
Well, I mean, if so, we've had some exchange rate stability to some extent, right? Even though the exchange rate is much higher than it was last year, but then last year we didn't have realistic exchange rates. If, or at least on the monetary policy side, you can get some form of stability in the exchange rate, you also can attract more foreign exchange inflows into the country. Then I guess, your businesses, individuals who need to get foreign exchange for one reason or the other, it's not as volatile. Two,
Okay.
it keys into the price stability mandate of the central bank. So stability is what you're aiming for by maintaining this. So while borrowing costs are higher, on the whole, over time, stability means that you have less shocks, which will also adversely affect individuals and businesses.
Okay. Now,
Ceteris paribus, as they like to say, all things being equal.
all things being equal. All right. And on a final note, CBN Governor Cardoso made a point about fighting poverty in an elevated interest rate environment. What exactly did he have to say about that?
Yeah, I'm trying to decide what was my favorite comment from him. Is either the FAAC comment or but maybe this one will win for me. He said that, look, you cannot reduce poverty in a high inflationary environment. He says, despite, I read Wale Edun, the Minister of Finance, he was at a forum last week, and he was saying that part of the key initiatives of the government is to provide single-digit interest rates for loans, which sounded great. People were clapping and he got applause. But how do you want to get single-digit interest rates when inflation is at 32.15%? So Cardoso was saying, and he wasn't replying, I'm just bringing up that point. He was just saying on his own that, listen, you cannot, how do you want to bring, you must, if to bring down poverty, you must bring down inflation, right? And inflation is basically a reflection of price levels in your country. So until you address the inflation, you can't fight poverty. And I thought that was a very, very astute point from him, which I hope people take note of.
Note very well taken. And of course, we'll be keeping our eyes open for more developments as they come and bringing them to your attention. Thank you so much, Rotus, for joining me this morning on Business Express. Always a great time having you on the show.
Thank you so much, Ayo. Thank you all out there. I'll catch you guys on the flip side.
All right. Have yourself a great Wednesday. And thank you all for being a part of Business Express this morning on Smooth 98.1. Keep it tuned. There's more great music to get you into the flow of your workday and so much more as we count down to 7:30 and, of course, Freshly Pressed. Brought to you by